Hello and welcome to the next layout update of the train room. This is about the months of January and February of 2021, and due to corona restrictions in Norway we couldn't have our regular building evenings. So Sven Magnus was sent in home office, so what he did you will see in the second part of the video. And we still have our giveaway at 10,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, then subscribe. And we might do a smaller giveaway around maybe 3,000 or 5,000 subscribers. Stay updated. And now to see layout update. So one of the first tasks this year was to repair that locomotive, which smoked when it was running, so that was bad. So I decided to dismantle the complete motor, and you see it was so dirty. I removed I don't know how much black stuff out of it, and at the end it looked like the previous owner had soaked this locomotive in oil, and I had to go with full chemistry arsenal to get rid of it, and then the locomotive worked again. Another task was all the cables which were hanging from the second deck, and it looked awful. So I decided to fix everything to the board so it looks better. The dangling cable just looked bad and unprofessional. The next step was to cut styrofoam to put behind the upper line, so that we can put some landscape, because it's not very accessible, and it's much easier if we can just take out the styrofoam, mount everything on and put it back on place. I had these long pieces of styrofoam I got from a DIY shop, which they use that to pile up stuff, and I just got them for free because they were throwing them away anyway. So basically it was to measure everything and then cut it with a foam cutter. And to test it I use a Challenger, which is the widest locomotive I have, and it got stuck on the first run, so I had to cut a little bit away then. So when we will do some plaster on it, we have to be sure the trains won't touch it. The next task was to replace the Märklin track on the second part of the industrial area with DC tracks, so it's easier to put them in the road. So since we have to rebuild the third rail anyway. This was a quite straightforward task by removing the tracks and then just connecting the feedback system and the wiring to the tracks. And the third rail will come later when we do the landscaping. And another thing is that we got a 3D printer, a Anycubic Photon S, which is very useful to create any kind of small details. Like here I'm doing some buffer stop for the industrial area, so it was just to find the models on Thingiverse, download it and put it in the software, and it would create all the supports to print it properly, and then it's just to remove it from the attachment plate and into the isopropanol. If you want to know more about 3D printing, then just look on YouTube. There are plenty of videos about 3D printing and that specific 3D printer model. I also did an experience with printing out a tree, which was left over from a Stavrak in the 3D model. So it took very long time to print it, so I don't know if we're going to go this way in the future. Okay, and now Sven Magnus will explain you what he did.
Yeah, first had to cut a template for what was later going to become the tarmac area for the chemistry research facility.
Which material are you going to use for the tarmac?
It's cardboard, actually. Found in the local bookstore. They have different shades of grey. Not 50 shades of grey, but
Yeah.
yeah. And I had to raise the portion a bit with the Depron because it didn't align with the chemistry base plate.
Yeah.
So I had to cut another one.
And you had to
From
cut
the
the
tablet.
hole for the gate.
Yeah. And the servo motors needed some holes for the small portion that sticks up.
And what's this kind of glue you use here?
It's actually just plain white glue for wood.
Yeah,
and
wood
such.
glue, PVA. Yeah.
PVA. Yeah. So a lot of fiddly stuff, but I think it's getting close to finished here. Testing the gate you made.
You should not do that. It's not good for the servo.
No, it's outside of the servo.
Okay.
So just remove the servo and just moved it by hand.
And here you didn't like my plastering, apparently.
Yeah, it was a bit too coarse and difficult to
Sand down? Or?
Yeah, so I had to. It was maybe I'm too picky, but I needed to do a lot of adjustment to get it where I wanted.
Yeah. So and now I'm making the holes for the pipe bridge and the loading silo.
Yeah, actually the pipe bridge is just sitting there without holes, but the silos needed holes because it's very tiny legs for it. So, and here the first layer of paint was not successful. It was too shiny and very thick, so I had to remove it again with more sanding.
Unfortunately, no undo button on this.
No, it's very manual undo button. And the second layer was very, very thin paint, and you could see the plaster structure through, which was what I wanted. It looks very good, like one-to-one concrete.
Yeah, and you use also a little vacuum cleaner like we have in the train room.
Yeah, I dug one out from the basement actually. Took a while to get it to work, but
yeah. Okay, now it's come to ballasting. You use your wife's makeup brush like we do in the train room.
No, it looks like that, but actually it's a dusting brush from a kit I got for model cars. Actually, it's my son's, but.
Yeah. And then we use a regular PVA glue and water to fix everything.
Yeah, with a little bit, a drop or two of dishwater.
Soap.
Dish, what do you call it?
Dish soap.
Dish soap, yeah.
And some...
some airbrush details on the sides.
Yeah, let's hope it still works because it's not tested.
Oh.
Yeah. And now you have to finish the fence I started.
Yeah. And first some
ground color.
Yeah, and pin-wise was very useful for this.
Yeah.
And I just finished what you started.
Yeah, I had made a template to measure the distance.
I didn't know that, so but it was not difficult to mark out with a ruler and a pencil, so it worked well. That, and there is the back side.
Yeah, And now it comes to the grass.
Yeah. First some sand and ballast.
Yeah, because it's not like you don't have a green meadow next to a chemistry factory. That's not logical.
No, so my thought was it's gravel, which has been invaded by the surrounding
By weed.
grass, weed and such. So that was my idea, and I had a lot of brown in the grass closest to the plant.
Yeah, the chemical has make it brown. Yeah.
Yeah. And greener grass, so the further away you came from the chemical plant.
Yeah. Probably they weeded a little bit more there also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's way too much grass here, and it's becoming better when vacuuming off the excess. But it was still too much, so here I'm removing a bit with a piece of tape.
Yeah.
And adding a bit more.
And here we make a fence with the rest of layout number 2, which I bought in 1994.
And that's amazing. It's a very good piece for this mesh fence. And that was.
Yeah, I actually was planned to use that for the mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have plenty. But I needed to use the edges to have the top end as I wanted it to look. So the middle of it we can use for the mountain.
Yes, and why didn't you use a normal drill here?
Yeah, actually my wife was having a video meeting just behind my back here, and also I had to drill above my desk, and I didn't want to punch holes in my desk as well.
Yeah.
It's a work bench desk, but still it's in the living room, so.
So now it's time for the prizes.
Yeah, actually half of it is, I think it's NOK. And prizes I've found the same blue and yellow figures in both.
Yeah, and for the next layout update you have to finish the front part now.
Yeah, I have turned it around, but I haven't started with the other side yet because I had other stuff to do. But
yeah, so it looks good. We had a lot of likes on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with the way it turned out.